coat and what's happening in Dallas right now, and that includes Troy Aikman. The three-time Super Bowl champ said the whole organization was in need of a complete overhaul.
I've heard Jerry say, okay, look, we're going to do it differently. I'm going to do it differently. But it's the same. Nothing changes. And that, to me, is the bigger issue. Yes, coaching is important, personnel, all those things are important. But how are you going about evaluating? How are you going about running the organization? And whatever that looks like, and everyone has an opinion on what it does look like, but I'm not in the building. I have no idea. You know, I talk to people who have been inside the building and have a pretty good understanding of how things are run. In a lot of ways, there's a lot of dysfunction, and that has to change if this team is going to be able to compete on a consistent basis like the teams that you look to around the league that seemingly are in the hunt each and every year.
All right, Nick, what do you think about what Troy Aikman said? Does there need to be some semblance of an overhaul at least with the brass with this Dallas team?
Well, I'm glad you said the brass, because I think as far as the roster goes, they have a lot of the foundational pieces any team would want. Franchise left tackle on a great contract, by the way. Check. A legitimate pass rusher. Nobody in the league's got more sacks over the last 2 years than DeMarcus Lawrence. So check. A superstar skill position guy. That's Zeke Elliott. Check. As an added bonus, they think they've got a number one wide receiver now. I know they like their linebackers in Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch, both on rookie contracts. Byron Jones is playing well at corner. So structurally, they've got a lot of the pieces you'd want. But I don't think they know if they have their quarterback. I know they don't know if they have their coach. And institutionally, and this is something we've talked about earlier, do they think that the system they have, which is Jerry Jones trickle down, is one that can be successful? Is that what Troy's talking about? That question at quarterback, a real question at coach, and a question of no matter what coach you put in there, will he be empowered to be successful and put his system in place? I think that's what Troy's talking about with the franchise overhaul.
Well, there was a significant overhaul this past offseason.
Yes.
They got rid of most of the coaching staff. They've already fired the offensive line coach again this year. And look, they're 2 years removed from being 13-3. So Jerry Jones could say, I had the coach of the year 2 years ago. I had the rookie of the year 2 years ago. Are we closer to that team than we are to the 9-7 team last year, or to where we are right now? And sometimes you can overreact to problems. And to me, it's more important to identify where the weaknesses are, and that comes with honesty and hard conversations, than it is to say everything's wrong, throw it all out, start over. I don't know if that's the best approach at this point.
Yeah, they overhauled the coaching staff. They overhauled this year as far as the offensive line coach. Offensive line not playing as well. Released the offensive line coach. I'm just not in the same with Troy. I just can't say overhaul because they got good talent. Organizations start with organizational control and what type of talent. Then it becomes getting that talent. Are you going to empower the people who are coaching up the talent? And I got no problem with how Dallas does things defensively. Now, I don't like their effort in the last game as far as on third down not being able to get off the field, but as a whole, their defense and Rod Marinelli, they can play for me and he can coach for me. I believe they do a good job. The biggest problem is Jerry Jones and the staff there, and they're always meddling in the offense. Who's the quarterback? How they're going to do things. Because Jerry, he thinks he knows more football than the people in the building. And whoever he puts as the head coach, he's got to move on from Jason Garrett. He's got to be able to trust that person. And you got to be able to have some hard conversations day in, day out, week in and week out, that I'm going to run the offense my way. Jerry Jones has no clue of what's the best way to run an NFL offense in 2018. And for him to keep thinking that he does, and he keeps saying that I'm going to empower my quarterback. This is a DAC system. No, it's not. This offense is a dinosaur. No one's playing offensive football the way the Cowboys are. You can't overpower NFL teams anymore. They do nothing sideline to sideline, all right? And they got no creativity. They run no reverses, no speed sweeps. How are they going to survive? So that's the biggest problem in how they're doing things. So what I think should be blown up is this philosophy of meddling with that offensive staff, which I believe has become a problem.
And when you look at it, Jason is actually a good fit for Jerry. They seem to get along well. They seem to be able to operate well. And if you're in that position where you know that you are going to constantly put input into the game plan, you're constantly going to be adding your opinion, then you better get a guy that's going to accept it and implement it, or you got to go extremely the other way, like when he hired Bill Parcells.
Yes.
But there's not very many Bill Parcells. There's not very many strong enough personalities to walk into that building and say, hold on a second, you need to go back to your office and let me take care of this and evaluate me on what I do. It's hard to find those guys.
You mentioned the importance of having honest conversations. And I know when we've talked about the Patriots, even though Bill Belichick is the first and final word there, you guys could have honest conversations with him. And I think you've told stories about how in the meetings, no matter where, if you were in the meeting room, no matter where you were in the hierarchy, you were allowed to give input, correct?
Yeah.
Like all ideas were welcome. Can you ever have an honest conversation with the owner of the team?
Yeah, you can. Now, typically those conversations take place on your way out. They may take place on your way in. Mm-hmm. You know, there's been owners I've had really honest conversations with, and I thought that we had a complete understanding as to what the future looked like. And then about 2 or 3 games into the season, his view of what the season looked like and my view were radically different. Now, unfortunately, his view took precedent.
Right. I believe, in talking to some people there in Dallas, that there have been some hard conversations with Jerry Jones, and especially in the personnel department. Stephen Jones has done a great job. He will never get credit because he's working under his dad. But if you look at the players that they have drafted, where they've come and how they fit into that team, that thing, they have done a good job. They got a great center. They got a great right guard. They got 2 middle linebackers. They got a corner. Now they traded for a wide receiver who's better than any of the upcoming wide receivers in the draft. They got Zeke from Ohio State. Man, they have really done it the right. Stephen Jones has told Jerry, listen, we can't draft Johnny Manziel. Oh, they got off of Johnny Manziel. They had a hard conversation about Dez Bryant, about releasing Dez Bryant. Someone had to make Jerry do that. So I think that he has done it. He needs to be involved with that head coach in this next decision. I believe that's the next bit. That's the best thing for this franchise moving forward.
We just keep talking in circles and circles. If Jerry Jones does the following couple things, but no one's telling Jerry Jones to do it, so he doesn't do it. And if you don't change anything, nothing changes.
Would that be a reason to you, in your opinion, Coach, to stay away from, if they do move on from Jason Garrett, to stay away from either a first-time coach or a college coach? Because it would seem to me like everyone's going to say Lincoln Riley. Everyone wants to hire Lincoln Riley. But anyone that, it would seem like the guy that would be least empowered to tell Jerry Jones, go back to your office, would be a first-time NFL head coach from the college ranks. Like, does that...
Well, look, then those guys would be the least equipped to be able to do that because they don't know about pro. If you haven't coached in pro football, it's hard to sit back and say someone who's been in it for as long as Jerry, hey, you're wrong. Parcells was a different animal than a first-time college coach or a first-time head coach.
I think there's a better chance of Lincoln Riley quitting Oklahoma and going to coach Oklahoma State Cowboys than to coach the Dallas Cowboys. Like people on this Lincoln Riley kick. Lincoln Riley. Be careful what you wish for.
That's the name I mentioned because that's the name everyone's mentioning. The point that I'm making is when you're talking about,
it ain't my job to repeat people that I don't believe have the right information.
Fair enough, but the point that I'm making is when we're talking generically about who the next head coach for the Cowboys is, do you think, given what we've talked about here, it's better it be a guy who's been an NFL head coach already?
I think the Dallas Cowboys coaching job is one of the worst in sports. College, pro, no matter where you come from. Jerry Jones thinks he knows more football, and he's definitely got more money. All right? So for him to swallow his pride, I don't think that's going to happen. You don't win them Super Bowls early in your career. You don't get into the Hall of Fame. He thinks it's all by his own doing. So that's one of the worst jobs in football. So college, go to CFL. It ain't going to matter. Jerry going to chew him up unless he changes the way he does things and empower that coach. It don't matter where to get him from.
We got to go. Coach, thanks so much for hanging with us.
All right, good to be here.
Appreciate it. Got to take a break. Coming up, can Dez Bryant be the X factor that brings the New Orleans Saints a Super Bowl? That's next on First Things First.
Oh, I see how you